Newcastle United through and through. He has also been to every big game, small game, and covered that football club everywhere. He is an award-winning journalist on numerous occasions. He is the voice of Newcastle United. Put your hands together for the one and only John Gibson! The next person, is probably famous for being one of the nicest guys that's ever played football. He did make 3 goals for somebody once, and he capped for Northern Ireland over 80 times. He wasn't like Ryan Giggs. He loved playing for his country. He is a legend at Newcastle United. He's a fantastic guy. Northern Ireland's very own. Put your hands together, please, for Keith Gillespie. Keith Gillespie, everybody. And finally, our third guest, he needs no introduction. He's got condoms after him. He was one of the icons, I can say, at Newcastle United, with his style, his flamboyance, his ability, and also one of the loveliest guys that you'll ever meet. He's flown in from Colombia to be with us this weekend for the Entertainers game, which I hope you're all going to. You love him. I love him. Tino! Asprilla!
Actually, what we're trying to do, there's 2 Tinos tonight, because we've got Carlos, his interpreter, with him, who will like
Carlos.
The great thing we've got to say tonight is why we're privileged to be in the company of these 2 guys. They are the Barcelona slayers for Newcastle United, and that's something very special. The only thing that can stop beating Sunderland, beating Barcelona. If I may go back to that, starting with you, Keith, as the guy that made the goals for Tino. Special night. Okay, it wasn't the Barcelona, Messi and Suarez, but it was a fabulous Barcelona side with Aldo and Enrique and Figo. We went out with that side and won 3-2, with 3 up in about an hour, and stayed there to win 3-2. What's your memories of that? Your best night, I presume, in a black and white shirt.
Well, yeah, I was allowed 1 good game. Tino was the same. He only had 1 good game too. I mean, first time ever qualifying for the Champions League. You know, and when the fixtures come out, you see we got Barcelona first game. You know, so you couldn't have picked a better game to start off with. And for me, sort of on a personal basis, maybe Tino as well, in terms of how we played that night. If you're going to pick a side who you want to play your best game against, you're going to pick a team like Barcelona. And you know, to be fair, Tino was just absolutely unplayable that night. I think he just set the tone from the first minute. I think he got fouled over in the far corner when he sort of done like a Cruyff turn, and he just occupied their whole back 4 all night. They didn't know what had hit him, and for me, I was just fortunate that I was the one who sort of managed to put the ball in the box, and Tino was able to get on the end of it.
I mean, the left back was Sergi, who was, I think, captain of Spain at the time. and he had him on toast, possibly because he didn't know who you were, or you didn't know who he was. But it worked, didn't it?
Yeah, I mean, sort of back then, '97, we didn't have the same sort of coverage that we had with sort of Sky Sports now. You have Spanish football all the time. I didn't have a fucking clue who Sergi was.
And he didn't know who you were, and you would have panicked.
He probably knew after the game, but. It was only after the game and later on that I actually found out that he was supposedly the best left back in the world. I wish I had played against him every week. But as I say, we didn't have that sort of coverage, so you didn't know who players were. You sort of knew the likes of your Figos and Rivaldos, Luis Enrique. They weren't. As you say, they weren't the sort of side where they got the people like Messi and Suarez, Neymar, people like that, but they were still...
They were pretty close.
Well, they were still an exceptional side. You sort of look at people like Rivaldo and you look at Figo, who were probably two of the best players in the world at the time, and as you mentioned, for 60 minutes we went out there and we showed them how to play football, and it was a good job that the final whistle went when it did, because they were coming back at us, and probably would have been Newcastle style. If it had gone on 5 minutes more, then we probably would have lost the game 4-3. But looking back, it's amazing to sort of be part of like a side, playing their first Champions League game, and we played Barcelona, and we pretty much took into the cleaners.
Tino, if I can ask you, a very, very special game. You had a lot of European success with Parma and won a lot of big games. But Shearer was out for Newcastle, permanently injured at the time. You went in, and I know about Metz, and I'm going to ask you about that shortly, but beating Barcelona with a hat-trick, extra special. Excuse me, I can't hear what you're saying. Sorry.
Sí, creo que para un futbolista siempre es importante jugar una Champions y hacerle 3 goles al Barcelona no es nada fácil, eso no es una cosa que lo puede realizar uno todos los días.
Very good answer, I thought myself. Absolutely nailed it. Yes, Carlos.
For any football player, it's a privilege to be playing in a Champions League game, but especially to score against Barcelona, a hat-trick. It's not something that you do every day, so it's definitely one of his most special moments in his career.
I knew it was a good answer. I knew straight from the start it was a good answer. If we can talk about you joining the Entertainers before we come on, it was the same for Tino. There was sort of up and running, or it was beginning to happen for Newcastle United. And you come, I don't know if you realised at the time, Keith, what a controversial transfer it was, because the other side of it was selling Andy Cole to Man U, so you could come to us. And Keegan at that time went on the stairs up here. Andy Cole has set the Newcastle goal-scoring record that still stands today for a season. And Keegan went on the stairs up here and said to the fans, trust me, which the fans did, as they trusted Bobby Robson and as they now trust Rafa. Please God, let's have the same outcome. He sold Cole, he bought Ferdinand and Shearer eventually, so by God, we're right to trust him. But did you realise from your side of it how controversial the transfer was in Newcastle because of Cole leaving?
To be fair, I think the first time that I sort of realised how controversial it was when I seen the pictures of Kevin on the steps. For me, I grew up a Man United fan. All of a sudden, I've gone to a game in the FA Cup for Man United, and I really felt I had a good chance of playing that night in the FA Cup. But Alex Ferguson pulled me aside before the game, explained the situation. We're in for this striker at Newcastle. He never mentioned Andy Cole, but so it didn't need to be a brain surgeon to realise who he was talking about. But he says the only way the deal's going to happen is if you go the other way. Kevin Keegan sort of insisted that you're part of the deal. So in effect, I was pretty much very crucial in that, because if I had said no to the whole deal, then Andy Cole would never went to Newcastle. So I
You would
watched.
never gone to Man U.
Never what, sorry?
You would never have gone to Man U.
No, I would never have gone to
You
Newcastle.
would, yeah.
No,
Just checking with him. I'm so fucking
no,
confused.
no.
Yeah, how's that going?
No, if I turned the deal down, I would never have went to or Andy Cole would never. You're confused.
Normal service will be resumed in 10 minutes.
No, I mean, Andy Cole would never ended up at Man United if I had turned the deal down. So, I watched the game, and Alex Ferguson had said to me, "Come and see me after the game and see what you want to do." So I thought about it, watched the game, and I came to him afterwards. Spoke to a few senior players at Man United at the time, like Steve Bruce and Brian McClare, people like that, who said, it's a great opportunity for me, because in fairness, I wasn't playing regularly at Man United. I had Andrei Kanchelskis in front of me, who was playing really well. So I felt as if it was a chance for me to go, or to come to Newcastle and play regularly. So pretty much after the game, the rest of the players jumped on a coach to go back to Manchester, and myself and Alex Ferguson jumped in a car to head to a hotel in Sheffield. And we met up with Freddie Fletcher, Freddie Shepherd, and Kevin Keegan. And I spoke to Kevin Keegan for sort of literally 30 seconds, and he completely sold the club to me in that time. He's that sort of character who can do that. He can attract players, and the fact that he was able to attract people like Tino and Les Ferdinand and Shearer along the way. So Alex Ferguson says to me, "Is it okay if I do your transfer deal?" Because I had no sort of agent at the time. So I said, "Yeah, it's fine." I trusted him. He rang my mum and explained the situation, that he would look after me. So we're sort of sat there at a table with Freddie Fletcher, Freddie Shepherd, and Kevin Keegan. And at the time I was part of a really good youth side. The likes of David Beckham and Paul Scholes, Nicky Butt, the Neville sisters. So I was part of a good side, so I trusted them to sort of look after me. So we were on like £250 a week. We weren't on big wages. So I was sort of sat there, and Alex Ferguson had the pen and paper, and he was writing things down, multiplying and doing all this. And all of a sudden he says, "Well, Keith's on £600 a week," and I sort of just looked up, and he just fucking gave me this fucking glare. So he says, "I want you to double that." So they doubled it to £1,200, and I think the happiest people about that was fucking Ladbrokes and Gosforth High Street.
I mean, it was quite incredible that a selling manager would actually act as your agent and help to do the deal. The interesting thing, just before going to Tino, was that a few months later, he tried to sign you back, I think, because Kanchelskis left. He wanted you to come and play for him again. That didn't happen, thank God, from our point of view. And that was the birth of David Beckham in the first team, because he went in to the position when you didn't return. But he did try to get you back, didn't he?
Yeah, it was 6 months later. I sat at home, and this before mobile phones, and this 0161 number kept coming up on the home phone, and I would never answer a number that I didn't recognise. So all of a sudden, this one day, the answer machine kicked in, and they started leaving a message, and it was Alex Ferguson. So I grabbed the phone and spoke to him, and he says, "Look, do you want to come back? If Alex Ferguson rings you, you're not going to sort of turn him down." But they went to Newcastle. They bid $4 million, and Kevin turned it down, and I have no regrets about that whatsoever, because I had the most amazing time at Newcastle. I was part of like a side now where Kevin Keegan was wanting to build a real good side, bringing in people like Ginola, bringing in Les Ferdinand, paying big money. So I've no regrets whatsoever. I don't know why Alex Ferguson at the time, because when he sold me, he says, "Look, I don't want you to go," but then fucking decided to act as my agent.
Just to make certain you did go.
Somebody was telling lies along the way, but no, I had an amazing time up here. So I would never have changed anything for the world.
if I can come on to Tino, signed for Newcastle February 1996, 6.7 million from Parma, where he'd had huge... Too much? Because it wasn't for you, it was to Parma, wasn't it? But it was a huge, huge deal for Newcastle, and we were surprised. I'd watched Tino in the Football Italia over here, playing for Parma and looking an absolute star. And when he turned up here in snow with a fur coat on, I thought, the fucker's not going to sign for us. What he means is he can't believe it himself.
A ver, yo vengo de Parma y yo no tenía idea de dónde quedaba Newcastle. Yo solamente había venido a Londres a jugar con la selección Colombia y cuando llego acá y veo una ciudad donde llueve, cae nieve, sale el sol, yo dije, ¿dónde puta estoy? Porque yo, cuando me hablan que tiene mar, yo pensé comprar un yate y venir a tener la vida que un joven se merecía, estar en la playa, mar, pero no era, fue todo lo contrario.
Can you remember all that? Off you go.
When Tino was playing for Parma, you know, the weather and everything was amazing. When he got told to come to Newcastle, he didn't have a clue where Newcastle was. He had only ever been to London playing for the national team. So when he came to Newcastle, he realized that it was snowing, but the weather was a bit crazy because it rained, there was snowing, and the sun came out. But you know, Keegan had told him that the place that he was going to had a beach, so he thought, oh, well, I'll be able to buy a plane. I'll be able to have a boat and I'll be able to go fishing on the weekend. So when Tino arrived, the first thing he said was, where the fuck am I?
At least Tino spoke fucking Spanish. Rob Lee thought Newcastle was closer to London than fucking Middlesbrough. Keegan pulled off a few goodies there. Keith, for me, coming into Newcastle, it was a huge time of upsurge from the verge of the third division before you two boys come, right up to being Premier League runners-up. That was season 95, 96, 96, 97 was the same thing. Only Manchester United, the old club, stopped us winning the title. But it was the first year, wasn't it, when we had a 12-point lead at one time and that eventually disappeared. Manchester United produced some ridiculous results, none more so than here when we played them off the park. Schmeichel saved everything and Cantona scored the winner. How disappointing was that season to the players eventually, because they were playing so well, and how much did it change the face of Newcastle United? Because if they'd won the championship, it would have been totally different from then on in.
Yeah, I think in terms of everybody who was involved that season, I think, you know, there's all of us probably just still have sleepless nights in terms of we came so close and we just didn't get over the sort of finish line. It's one thing I always say that there's not many people have said who came second in the league 2 years ago. You'd be sort of scratching your head, but everyone will always remember that Newcastle side, and that's because of the style of football that we played. You know, people always say the league table never lies. For me, the end of that season, you know, it did. You know, we played the best football. I think if we had to beat Man United that night, where Peter Schmeichel was unbelievable, we probably would have went on to win the league. I think everyone remembers, obviously, Kevin after the Leeds game. You know, I'd love it if we beat them, and I was particularly aggrieved that night because he was interviewed after the game and done his whole rant and his whole thing, and you know, I think when you look back, you go, you know, fair play to him for doing it, but for me, I fucking scored the winner that night and no fucker remembers.
just before I go on to Tino, I remember before going to Tino and when he joined Newcastle, just remember when Tino signed for Newcastle, I remember talking to the board at the time saying what an amazing deal. And it, like any big deal, it hits snags and then the snags become okay, etc, etc. And Palmer thought at one time Newcastle were jockeying them about, so they sent Freddie Fletcher and Russell Jones over to Italy to placate Palmer and saying yes, we want to complete the deal, which was then eventually completed. The Palmer president then made a speech in Italian in front of the Newcastle contingent, etc, etc. And the Newcastle contingent then said, "Thank you so very much," and warmly shook the Palmer president's hand. And the Newcastle interpreter said, "Why are you shaking hands with him?" He said, "Because the Presidente has just called you a pair of little shits," he said. And he wasn't a bad fucking judge, actually, the President. But there we go. When you come to Newcastle, you weren't given time to settle in, Tino. Almost immediately on arrival, you made your debut as off the subs bench at Middlesbrough. We were 1 down, set up an equaliser, Newcastle won 2-1, but you were thrown into it very unexpectedly.
Fue extraño porque Keegan, cuando yo llegué, Keegan me había dicho que yo solamente iba a sentarme en la banca a ver el partido y de repente el equipo iba perdiendo y me tocó jugar un partido sin conocer a mis compañeros. Y lo más extraño es que el cambio por el que yo entro en el medio es por Gillespie, que lo tengo aquí al lado, y él es el que me tira los centros para los goles del Barcelona, o sea que tenemos una conexión, inclusive tanta que vamos a ir a la discoteca ahorita juntos.
It was a big surprise for him because he wasn't supposed to play. Kevin Keegan had told him that he had to go to the game, but he was just going to be in the bench watching the game. He says, funny enough, the sub was Keith had to come off. And
he was hoping he wasn't going to mention that, but there you go.
And Tino went in, but he said, "This, their life had been, they're such good friends that they've always been connected because Keith was on that cross the ball in for Tino to score the hat-trick. And at that time, Keith came off to Tino going in, and he crossed the ball, to be able to score. And he's saying they've got so much connection that even tonight they're even going to go out to the strip club together.
I would like to ask Tino how difficult it is. How difficult it is when you come into a side that's battling for the championship. I remember years ago when Rodney Marsh come into Manchester City side battling for the championship just to put the icing on the cake. It didn't work and he took the complete flat for it not working. How difficult was it for Tino to come into a totally new environment in a new club, going for the title, and then perhaps when the title is missed, some people suggesting it had something to do with the Tino selection by Kevin Keegan?
Dígale que yo no tapaba, el problema de nosotros era el arco, yo no tapaba, yo hacía goles.
He says, the problem they had at the time was that Tino didn't play in goal.
Well, that was a very short and succinct answer, but we'll get the message.
El problema de Newcastle en ese momento fue que llegué a un club donde la mayoría de jugadores no estaban enseñados a ganar títulos y nunca se dieron cuenta de lo cerca que estuvimos de ganar la Premier League y la perdimos por nosotros mismos, pero yo venía a un club que ganaba campeonatos con jugadores, aquí no estaban acostumbrados. Creo que eso fue uno de los problemas que tuvimos para perder, porque nadie se dio cuenta de lo lindo que es ganar un título.
Another thing was that when he was playing in Palma, the players in Parma were used to winning titles. They knew what it meant to win a title. They knew the responsibility to go and make sure they got the results. He felt at times that some of the players didn't know what it was to win a title, so they didn't understand what they were going through. So maybe that the lack of experience maybe cost them the league.
Yeah, the one thing I would like to ask Tino as well is that we talked about Barcelona and the hat-trick being a wonderful and epic moment for Tino. But I also remember in the second season, UEFA Cup, when we played against Mets, and Tino had a fabulous game, and after scoring stuck his shirt on the corner flag, if you remember, and give it the upside daisy, for which he got a yellow card. But I mean, that must, and missed the next game with Monaco. That game must rank high in his Newcastle memories.
O sea, la celebración no era típica mía, siempre fue dar la voltereta, pero esa celebración quise demostrar a la gente de Newcastle que yo amaba esta camiseta y que era lo más grande que tenía en el momento y que la tenía que tener lo más alto posible, lo más arriba posible en el fútbol.
When he did that celebration, it wasn't his typical, somersault that he normally did. But what he wanted to represent at the time was that Newcastle was at the top of the top of football. They were like the world-class players, and he just wanted to show that he loved the club. And for him, it meant that Newcastle were right at the top of everything.
Right, if we can come to you, Keith. If we can come to you and have a placid question after the emotive questions we've been asking. You blew £7 million on the bookies. Oh, that was a very serious question. You blew £7 million on the bookies. I mean, 7 quid's a lot of fucking money to me, but 7 million's obscene. Went bankrupt, but had a hell of a fun time doing it, I believe. Can we talk about that? And I was being flipped there, but in a serious situation, when you're a 19-year-old kid living all the time in a hotel room more than with a family, it sort of lends itself to how do I fill my time in. Can you tell us about that period in your life? I'll have a drink in the meantime.
To be fair, to me it was probably fast women and slow fucking horses. When I was at Man United, I used to put the bets on for Alex Ferguson. It wasn't a big deal back then. The gambling side of things, you could go and you could put bets on, and you could bet in football and this. So I got involved in that at a very young age as an apprentice, and I moved to Newcastle at 19 years of age, and for the first 5 months of my life I was living in the Gosford Park Hotel. So you start training at 10:30 every day, you finish maybe 12, 12:15. So I was heading back to an empty hotel room, and the rest of the players were maybe going home to their wives, to their families, and maybe picking kids up from school and that. So I'm going back to the hotel room, and for me, I needed something to release the boredom. So I ended up on Gosforth on High Street there in the Labrooks. And the worst I ever had was, I always remember the date, 27th of October. But 2 days previous to that, we were playing Stoke in, I don't know what it was called then, the Coca-Cola Cup or whatever it was called back then. So we travelled down on this Wednesday to the game, and we booked into the hotel, and we'd have some lunch, and then you go and you have your sleep. So I'm rooming with David Ginola. He's sleeping within 2 minutes of getting into the room. That's the sort of effect I have.
By yourself or?
But I was betting all afternoon. I was on the phone because the phone betting had come in then. So I ended up winning about $3.5 that afternoon. So I'd met this guy in the bookies who said to me, "This is the season where we're going really well." He says 2-0, 2-1, 3-0, and 3-1 are Newcastle's the scores that are happening most often. So I thought, right, I'm going to do this. So I'd £500 on Peter Beardsley to score the first goal because he hadn't scored in about 6 games. And then I had £500 doubles with with Beardsley first goal, 2-0, 2-1, 3-0, 3-1. So after about 40 minutes, 0-8, and all of a sudden Peter Beardsley pops up and scores, and I've never run as fast in my life against fucking Peter Beardsley. About 3 minutes later, he made it 2-0. So we're 2-0 up at half time, so everything's looking quite rosy. About 10-15 minutes in the second half, I had a bit of a cross shot, the keeper saved it and Les scored. So we're 3-0 up, so all of a sudden every time I'm getting the ball then, I'm fucking shanking it into the fucking crowd. There's 25 minutes left and I'm going to the corner to fucking keep the ball. Paul Pascasolido, who played for Stoke at the time, went clean through and goal, and I had a great view of it, and I'm watching it, I'm going, score you bastard, score. Obviously the odds were better, but about 6-7 minutes to go, Darren Peacock ventures forward, and you're not too bothered about that normally because he didn't score too many, but he managed to find himself in the box and fucking rifled one in the top corner. And everyone's running and jumping on him, and it's the first time I knew what Darren Peacock's middle name was, Darren fucking Peacock. He'd just done me out of 52 grand and knew nothing about it.
And bloody Joey Barton thinks he's got problems up at Glasgow Rangers with betting. I mean, this boy's the boy. Now, just to give us a vague idea of how you might have got a tad upset at times, on this particular day, you lost 47,000 quid in one day, but undeterred, ploughed on the next day and lost 15 grand the next day. Now, if that's not enough to make your fucking bollocks curl, I don't know what is. But that is absolutely true, isn't it? And that, I think, become the sort of turning point in terms of a newspaper found out, the Sun, I think it was, wasn't it? And they're going to blow it, so you've got to tell Keegan, you've got to tell your mum, and probably your mum was worse than telling Keegan. But suddenly there's a major problem. Can you tell us about how you handle it with Keegan first?
Yeah, well, I mean, the game against Stoke was on the Wednesday, where Darren done me out of the 52 grand, and it was 2 days later we lost to 47. And I always remember I was sat at home, and the first bet of the day I had £1,000 a horse and it won, and then it just went fucking downhill from then. By sort of 5:20 I rang the bookie. I had no idea what I'd lost whatsoever. I says, what's the damage to that? He says 47 grand. I thought, oh fuck. So the next day, you know, you try and recoup, and I ended up losing 15 grand on the coach because we were going down to play Tottenham. So we played Tottenham on the Sunday, and I actually had a really good game. I don't know how, fucking after losing 62 grand in 2 days. But I remember sitting on the coach, and we would have had a drink on the coach on the way back, and we played cards, and Kevin would have come to the back of the coach, and I was sat beside Peter Beardsley. I'll never ever forget. Kevin Keegan pointed at me and says to Peter Beardsley, he could just be the best player in the country at this time. I thought, fuck, if only he fucking knew, I've just lost 62 grand.
I didn't say the best better in the country, he said the best player in the country.
But no, it was a great accolade for him to say to me, but obviously the Sun got a hold of the story. I didn't fucking have 62 grand in my fucking bank, so the Sun found out about this, and I went down, I rang Kevin Keegan, I went down and had dinner with him and his family, and you know, he sorted the whole problem out. I was due money in signing on fees, you know, so they forwarded the money to me earlier, so we were able to sort of pay the bookie. But I mean, back then that was the end of it. It wasn't like, right, you need to go and get some help here, you know. Yeah. It was paid, and you know, for a few months I would stay off the gambling, but you know, it was always going to come back to me. But you know, Kevin Keegan was fantastic through the whole episode of sorting me out, because as it was, I was sort of 19, 20 years of age, and when I knew the story was breaking in the newspaper, that was the hardest part, was actually ringing my mum, because I had to ring her and I says, Mum, there's a story going in the paper, I've lost a bit of money gambling. She went, "Och son." You always say "Och son" back home. So she says, "How much?" And I says, "A lot." Here she says, "What, 20 grand?" I says, "More." "Och son." 30 grand? No. "Och son." I says, 47 grand. You know, so she was, pretty much devastated by it all. But I had fun doing it along the way. I lost a lot of money.
Hope so for 63 grand down the pan. But how do you see it now? What's your gambling situation now? I know you're not going to gamble at that level because Steve Wraith's not paying you that much. But do you still have a gamble?
Yeah, I enjoy like a football bet. I mean, anybody who bets, they love a Saturday afternoon where they're watching the scores come in and, be it for 20, 30 quid or whatever it is. Just, it never mattered to me what I had on a horse. The most I ever had on a horse was 4.5 grand. And it fucking won, surprisingly enough. But, it didn't matter whether I had £4 on a horse or 4 grand on a horse. You still sort of get that same buzz, and I think only people who gamble understand that sort of side of things. But certainly it was a huge learning curve along the way.
So are you betting on the Entertainers on Sunday or on Manchester United, considering you're playing for them?
Well, the fact that I'm playing for United, I'm going to put a lot of money on Newcastle.
Well said, Mike Ashley. That's very kind. If I may ask you, Tino, Kevin Keegan was always a great believer in your unique talent, which is why he brought you here, etc. It was Dalglish that sold you, and Palmer welcomed you back so much because of what you'd done for them. You may have only scored 9 goals in 48 league games for us, but you scored 9 goals in 11 in the biggest tournament, which is Europe. Considering what you did with Colombia and Palmer, where does Newcastle United sit in your memories today?
Yo jugué en 2 clubes grandes en Europa, que fue Parma y Newcastle. Siempre van a estar entre los 2 primeros por todo lo que me dieron y porque no era fácil un colombiano jugar en Europa en esa época.
For Tino, Newcastle and Palma will always be the biggest clubs he's played for, because at that time, for a Colombian player to be playing in Europe wasn't easy. Even though he didn't achieve anything in Newcastle, the fans and the atmosphere was unbelievable, and he never lived up before anywhere else.
Brilliant, well said, well said. If I may, Keith, having proved yourself to be an excellent footballer and a crap gambler, you then went on to be a shite heavyweight champion of Ireland when you took on Allon in Dublin in an all-comers competition. Could we have a look back at that and relive it, however painful it might have been? Can you tell us how that come about and what exactly happened?
No, pero
No, Tino's going to tell us.
se lo pegó bien pegado porque era insoportable este hijo de puta en esa época.
He says, Chiro hitting you, you deserve it, because at that time you were fucking annoying.
And now back to the fucking studio. Right. What actually happened, Keith, from your point of view?
No, I mean, basically it was a sort of mid-season trip. I think it was March time. We played on the Saturday, and then we were flying to Dublin on the Sunday. So we're flying from Teesside Airport, and as soon as we got to Teesside, I mean, it was about 10 o'clock in the morning. The best news that we heard was that Kenny wasn't travelling, that Terry Mack was looking after us, so he ordered everyone straight to the bar. So needless to say, we'd had a few drinks, and we get to the hotel, and about maybe 8, 10 of us decide to head into the city centre. So we're having sort of drinking games, and we're having a bit of a laugh, and all of a sudden I'd knocked some cutlery off the table. So Alan Shearer turned around and says, "Fucking pick them up." And I says, "Fuck off you, outside now."
As you do, yeah.
So he stood up. I didn't think he'd take me up on the offer, but I couldn't really back down. So the bar that we're in is a place called Café on Seine, which is a real big, long, narrow bar. You have to walk, you know, it feels like about half a mile to get down to the back. So I started walking and I could hear his footsteps behind me. I'm thinking, what the fuck have you done here? You've got no chance whatsoever. So I was, as I say, it was a big, long, narrow bar. So I was able to think, you know, what I'm going to do. So I thought, right, you need to get the first one in here. So we get outside, and as soon as we get out, I sort of turned and I swung for him and missed. He swung for me. My fucking head ended up hitting the fucking plant pot. I was knocked out, unconscious. A few of the boys had come out, Rob Lee had come out, Steve Howe had come out, so Rob Lee thought, right, the press are going to turn up, we need to get Allon Shearer away or whatever, so he disappeared. So he said he left it with Rob, or with Steve Howe, you know, just come up with a story. But in the meantime, as I'm unconscious, Steve Howe starts giving me CPR, and somebody turned to him and said, "It's his fucking head, you stupid bastard." Rob Lee just says, "Look, just look after the situation." So when the press turned up, Steve Howe said that I was hit by a fucking hit and run driver. So now all of a sudden they're looking for a hit and run. So that's how clever Steve Howe was. But the next day, I spent the night in hospital and went to the hotel the next day, and the first person to knock on the door was Allon Shearer and Rob Lee, and we had a laugh about it. It was just one of those sort of occasions where we had a little bit too much to drink, and you know, boys will be boys, but we never ever had any problem. You know, people probably think that because we had that sort of escapade that we didn't get on. You know, that was just one occasion. We get on great, and that he probably comes across on TV as a bit of a boring twat, but he is actually a really good lad and a really funny lad, and you know, I do have a lot of time for him.
Now, Carlos, I want you to actually interpret very fucking closely here. You listen? We've heard about the gambling, and we've heard about his failure as a bloody professional boxer. I would like to turn the spotlight now onto Tino, who had something of a reputation which might have been quite unnecessary of being a fucking playboy. And now we've heard about the condoms, which I think is a wonderful idea, and he's probably made a fortune out of them. But we also had a... There's too many of these fucking things written down here. There was also the occasion when his drunken mate gave away £44,500 shores of Tino's, which the police eventually got back. There was the incidents with the guns, which are far too many to mention, but John Wayne was very, very proud of them. And then there's the porn star who we flirted with temporarily along the way. Would Tino like to comment on any of those things?
All of them.
Sorry, yes, on all of them.
Make them funny.
Lo de la estrella de porno es una fantasía que tenemos todos los hombres. Nunca pasó, nunca fue verdad. Me la encontré en una discoteca en Parma con unos compañeros y después me hicieron un escándalo, cosa que nunca fue verdad. Me hubiera gustado estar con ella, pero nunca pude.
You know, about the porn star, he says, it's about the porn star, he says, it's every man's dream. But unfortunately, it wasn't true. What happened was he was in a nightclub in Parma, and he met Petra, who was the porn star, the Italian porn star. They said hello, you know, they had a drink, and then they took some photos, and it was just a big rumor. But he says, it's a shame because, you know, I wish it would have been true.
And if you believe that, Mike Ashley's the owner of the year.
Bueno, lo de las pistolas en Colombia hubo una época muy delicada, muy peligrosa, donde tenía que andar con guardaespaldas, y un día andaba con ellos y tenía 2 pistolas que llevé de Italia, las compré, pero la policía me vio y bueno, siempre arrastran al bueno y dejan ir a los malos. Ese día me agarraron a mí y no cogieron a las personas malas que me están haciendo daño ese día.
Carlos, you're laughing like a drain, so this answer must be good.
You know, when about the guns, Colombia was going through like a tough time, And obviously Tino was a big name, so he had to look after himself. So he bought 2 guns in Italy and brought them to Colombia, and he had some bodyguards. And he was having a little bit of bother with some people, and the police came, but he says, you know, as usual, the police always arrest the good guy and let the bad guys go.
Well, I can understand that. That's okay. That's okay, my friend. That's okay. Can we turn to you, since we're talking about girls and not like you off the hook on this one, having had you on the gambling and I mean, obviously you were saying about slow horses and fast ladies. Did they play a part in the rise and rise of Gillespie, not the down and down, is it? Fast girls.
Yeah, just a wee bit. Well, I've had 2 ex-wives, so that's a good start. But certainly when I was at Newcastle, I did have a major problem one night. I had actually agreed. Newcastle had agreed to sell me to Middlesbrough. Behind Kenny Dalglish, who was the manager at the time. He didn't have a clue about it, but I was in the last year of my contract, and the sort of club were messing me about with a new one, so they decided to sell me to Newcastle or to Middlesbrough. So I'd agreed to go there, but it was pre-season time. Friday night, I headed out into town, ended up in Julie's, and I met these 2 young girls. I lived in Wickham at the time, so we shared a taxi back. We dropped one of them off and ended up at the other one's house, so I ended up getting into her house, and you do what you do. So I was actually pulling my trousers on upstairs, and the front door went. It was about 2:30 in the morning. I thought, who the fuck's that? 2:30. So she ran to the top of the stairs, she looked down, there's a big glass front door. She goes, oh fuck, it's my boyfriend. So I didn't even know why I did it. I ran across the landing and went into the nearest room, and it was a kid's bedroom. So I jumped on the top bunk and pretended I was sleeping. So I heard these sort of footsteps coming up the stairs. So I was facing away from the door, and the door opened and the light came on, and I sort of turned around, rubbed the eyes, and he goes, fucking hell, it's fucking Keith Gillespie. Have you been shagging Wall lass? So I had to get all defensive then. You know, I jumped up, and all of a sudden he started throwing punches, and you know, it was like something from the movies. Were falling down the stairs, and the 2 kids were actually downstairs in the living room. He'd brought them with him. They were crying their eyes out, and all of a sudden the front door was open, and I realised that I had to be home by 3 o'clock because my girlfriend was at home. So I ran home, and I'd lost my keys, so she came to the door and had a cut lip with that, and I said, some bastards jumped me outside the chip shop. So she started getting the TCP out, and all of a sudden, 10 minutes later, the police knocked at the door, and it was the guy had rang the police and said that I assaulted him. So they relived this whole story that I was at this woman's house, to my girlfriend at the time, and she just gave me daggers across the room. But she must have believed, because I actually told her that the only reason I was at the house was because there was photographs on the bedroom wall, and I had to go in and sign them. So she believed it, because I ended up marrying her.
He's a better liar and a gambler. If we can come back to football, which we haven't talked about for the last 20 minutes. Colombia, Tino, 57 caps, 20 goals, big star in a wonderful football country. In 1994 in America, I was actually there covering the World Cup at the time. Was the time when Colombia tragically went out with an Escobar own goal, and he was later shot to death back home. How difficult was that for Tino? Because he was obviously, I presume, a friend. How much of a low time was that?
Es algo terrible, algo que uno no espera que le suceda a ningún compañero del fútbol. vivíamos una situación muy complicada en Colombia, donde por haber ganado en Argentina pensábamos que íbamos a salir campeones del mundo y al final, al no lograrlo, con este autogol de Andrés, pues lamentablemente sucedió la muerte de él, cosa que nadie lo esperaba en ese momento.
You know, the death of Andres Escobar is something that, you know, it's devastating because when you have a teammate, you don't want anything like that to happen to anybody. I think the people in Colombia thought that Colombia were going to win the World Cup because they had such a good team. They had great success in the qualifiers, and obviously, you know, Andres Escobar got shot and everything. Like the whole football team was just devastated and in tears.
No, y nosotros, cuando llegaron las amenazas, íbamos en el avión de Estados Unidos a Colombia y Andrés Escobar me rogó y me suplicó para que yo no saliera fuera de discoteca porque estábamos amenazados. Me hizo prometerle que yo no iba a ir a una discoteca y el que salió fue él y le pasó eso a él, que es lo más increíble.
You know, and the hardest thing was on the flight back from the US to Colombia. The Colombian players had already been threatened by, you know, by the mafia that they were going to kill them because the performance was terrible. But Tino was up next to Andres and he told him that, you know, Tino, you need to promise me that you're not going to go out. Obviously, Tino had a reputation for going out and partying. Yeah. And Andres was the one telling him, promise me you're not going to go out. And he says, you know, it's life. Andres ended up going out and, you know, he got killed.
Terribly ironic, terribly ironic. If I may, to lighten it up, ask you, Keith, inevitably, if you forward a winger in Northern Ireland and you come to the public's attention very, very early, you're going to be the next George Best. That's the expression they'll always give you. Now, I think when they did that with you, they meant talent. They didn't mean like getting pissed and
Oh, they did?
But I mean, how difficult was that, especially when you went to Man U, which is his club? How difficult was that to try to live up to or live it down, if you like?
No, I mean, I think anybody from Northern Ireland who goes to Man United, you're going to get those sort of comparisons, and you're going to think of worse comparisons. But you know, I was very fortunate back in sort of 1994. I played in Billy Bingham's testimonial against Newcastle actually, and George Best came on as sub. So, you know, I was lucky enough to be on the same pitch as him. He probably can't remember it because he came on, he was pissed. And I remember him, Newcastle got a corner kick and he went and took it, forgetting that he played for the other side. You know, I mean, it's a nice sort of thing to have said about you. I mean, we're sort of Northern Ireland in terms of our population. We're very, very small, but we do sort of bat above our stations at times. You know, and certainly we probably got one of the best footballers that the world has ever seen, and you know, and we're sort of proud of that.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. If we can finish, Tino, on a fun note, having had the wonderful, wonderful career you had in Italy, Colombia, and over here, we remember last seeing in North East disappearing over the fucking horizon as I would have done when George Reynolds made you an offer to join Darlington. Now honestly, I would have pissed off in a right state into that situation because he was definitely a slave short of a full shilling. What about
you? Similar, George Reynolds.
Oh, George Reynolds. Now you see it, now you don't. Oh, But definitely a guy to avoid. Would you ask him a question? What about that George Reynolds thing? Because I found it hysterical. And he went off to the Middle East also, he said.
No pasó nada. George Reynolds, solo que cuando hice un contrato por teléfono y llegué acá, él mismo me dijo, yo soy una persona de las más tramposas del mundo, yo abro cualquier caja fuerte y me robo la plata que quiera. Y dije, bueno, yo vengo de Colombia, buena copia vamos a hacer.
You know, when George Reynolds promised him a contract over the phone, it was something completely different to when he flew to Dublin to speak to him. And George Reynolds even said to Tino, Tino, I'm very famous for doing fraud, and I can.
Well, he was. In fairness, he's telling the truth.
I can open any safe, and I'm a dodgy man. And Tino said to him, well, I'm Colombian, so I think we're gonna get along well.
Yeah, and everybody's fucked off in different directions. Just before we finish, last question, having had the fun moment with Tino and what happened after Newcastle United. I mean, I know we haven't got time unless we get an extension and order breakfast to talk about all your clubs after Newcastle. But I mean, there are a lot of the fun managers you work with and the ones that weren't so fun. Kevin Blackwell, would you like to tell us about him at Sheffield?
Oh yeah, I had Kevin Blackwell as a manager at Sheffield, and from sort of day one we just never seen eye to eye. I felt as if he was a bit of a bully. I never, when he came in charge, and I was on the bench a lot, never played. I'd have been put away playing for Northern Ireland, and he would have put training back so that I had to come into training on a Thursday afternoon to do sort of 10 minutes, just to sort of annoy me. So we'd fallen out, and all of a sudden, I'm not even in the squad, and I was sat at home one day, and they were playing Sheffield Wednesday. So Sheffield Wednesday had already beat Sheffield United that season, so this is the return game, so they beat them again, and it was the first time in sort of 20, 30 years, whatever it was. So I got my wife's phone at the time, and I had his phone number, so I texted him and I says, well done in creating history today, you fat bastard. He didn't have a clue who it was, so he changed his phone number, and I knew the master very well, who, when I left the club I still had his number then, so I used to text him at stupid hours of the morning. He never had a clue. So this one occasion, he got the sack then from Sheffield United, so I decided to send him a message, and I don't even know where the name came from. Braintree, down played in the conference or whatever. I said,
that's right.
Braintree are looking for a new manager. Do you know of anyone? He sent a message back, fuck off, Gillespie.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's been my privilege, I'm certain it's been your privilege, not only to talk with Carlos, but to talk to two Newcastle United legends from a very fabulous time in our history. Hold on, Tino's going to go.
Decirle aquí a Gillespie que cuente quién fue el que me enseñó todas las groserías y que cuente lo de Kisbaya.
He says, Keith, why don't you tell people who told Tino how to swear in English, and then you're going to get him knocked out by Keith Bayer?
Yeah, sorry, I'm the reason why Tino knows how to swear in English. It's the worst thing ever done, because he fucking rings me all the time and he just goes, he leaves me a message going, Keith Gillespie, you fucking bastard, you fucking prick, you fucking bastard.
Ladies and gentlemen, the entertainers, Keith Gillespie, Tino Asprilla.
Ladies and gentlemen, 50 years for Newcastle United, the Evening Chronicle, your host for this evening, John Gibson, everybody, and the one and only Keith Gillespie and himself, live from Colombia, Tino!